The Arizona Cardinals have the best future trajectory of any team in the NFC West. Why do I say that? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner _ Follow the podcast, the Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sports radio veteran since 2011, hosting this podcast since 2017. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. The Cardinals have the best future trajectory out of any team in the NFC West. There are some things that need to happen for that to come to fruition on the field. That there are things that cannot happen, both in and out of the Arizona Cardinals' control for that to happen. And I'm going to cover it all today on Locked On Cardinals. Please, again, go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. If you want to go where you listen to your podcast, if you're audio only, you want to leave a review, be happy to see it. Hopefully it's a good one. I'm just happy that you're here, truly. If you've been with me since 2017, thank you. If this is your first listen, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second listen. The Arizona Cardinals have the best trajectory, future pacing, than any team in the NFC West. And there's a couple different components that go into this. Some proven, some not. Some so far so good, some yet to be seen but looking good. And it's predicated upon the last two drafts. It's predicated upon the contracts or lack thereof for players in coming years, veterans specifically, and solely predicated upon Kyler Murray. So why did I come to this conclusion? Throughout the next two segments after this one, I will be discussing concretely what needs to happen for this trajectory to actually be played out. What cannot happen regarding the Arizona Cardinals specifically, and also regarding the other teams in the NFC West, things the Arizona Cardinals don't have control over. What things cannot happen that would get in the way and become hurdles that the Cardinals would need to circumvent to get to their ultimate goal of being the best team in the NFC West. But by and large, right now, remove the by and large. Absolutely. The trajectory for the Arizona Cardinals is brightest. They've got their quarterback that's going to be on a team-friendly deal come after 2024. They've got young, great players in the right positions. They've got all the salary cap and all the land to spend next year on top of, almost a full slate of picks. And they've got veterans in key positions who won't be making really any money after this season. Like, I think it's rookie second-year players in Kyler Murray who are going to be under contract after this year. So while there are things that are in place this year, pillars in place, James Conner, Budda Baker, Kyler Murray, you've got the second-year guys, you've got the rookies, you've got the head coach, you've got the right GM, you've got the right coordinators. So far, so good with them. The Cardinals not only are more stable than they've been in quite some time, they're more stable than, in my opinion, the Rams and the Seahawks. Why are they? This isn't like, who won more games last year? Number one, the Seahawks don't know who their quarterback is. They wouldn't have traded for Sam Howell if they knew Geno Smith was the guy. Geno Smith is one of the greatest stories we've seen in the history of the NFL. I think he made $13 million in his career over 10 years before going to Seattle. And then now, he got paid. He's played really well. They've been in contention. They've been, relevant. Good for him. He deserves it all. They still don't know if he's the guy. First-time head coach. John Schneider is one of the more polarizing guys from the GM position. Like, Legion of Boom, forgot how to draft, and then is getting better at it. Now it's the wildest, upsy-downsies we've seen. The Rams, Les Snead is a wild card who fell into a Super Bowl. Like, Matthew Stafford's fantastic. That move was great for both teams, Detroit and him. Aaron Donald retired. Cooper Kupp isn't getting any younger. Puka Nacua was a great draft. But that roster is one of the poorer rosters, talent-wise, that we've seen in a while for the Rams. What's the future look like there? What's the future look like in Seattle? We don't know. How long is Matthew Stafford going to play for? There was rumblings that he was going to retire before last season because of his elbow. Like, there's so much uncertainty with those two organizations. And then with the 49ers, they still haven't paid Brock Purdy yet. This whole noise about Brandon Ayuk, they're going to pay Brandon Ayuk. The same thing happened with Deebo Samuel. They're going to pay him. The biggest mistake John Lynch has made regarding personnel, not trading up for Trey Lance aside, paying Deebo Samuel was a massive mistake. That money could have been allocated elsewhere. Brock Purdy's going to have to get paid, or they're going to move off from him. If they move off from him, there's going to be wildfire. And if they don't, they're going to have to pay him $45 million a year. And then it's not so fun to be a 49er player that's not a quarterback, because now they're not paying their quarterback $8 a year. Uncertainty. The Cardinals don't have that. Now, the 49ers are far and away this year and probably next year the more talented, more playoff Super Bowl ready than the Cardinals. That's not what this is about. That's not what it's about this year or really next year. It's in perpetuity. It's the next 5 years. It's the next 7 years. Which team's trajectory is set up for more potential success? And that's why I think it's the Cardinals. They've got all the money. They've got all the picks. They've got their quarterback. They've got their coach. They've got their GM. They've got their young players. And they've got veterans who may or may not be around, but most definitely should, in my opinion, namely Budda Baker and James Conner, for the next 3 seasons to be able to kind of coax this team back into relevancy on and off the field. So while this seems to some who don't want to critical think, which is fine, that's your right, looking at the Cardinals, regardless of history of these organizations, all they have is open runway, open field, open everything. And Monti Ossenfort can create whatever new reality the Arizona Cardinals will live in the next couple seasons. Seattle, they don't have a quarter. Again, Geno Smith has been great, but he's got a ceiling. Matthew Stafford is 10 years older than Kyler Murray, if not more. And the 49ers, their roster is going to look completely different after this season. Completely different. Sure, Nick Bosa will be there. Sure, Christian McCaffrey is going to be there. George Kittle will be there, most likely. It's either going to be all the players and a new quarterback, or Brock Purdy and a whole bunch of different players. Cardinals don't have that problem. The Cardinals are set. They've got ammo, draft. The last 2 years of draft players on the roster. And they've got all the money. Top 5 cap space to spend over $9 million next season. That's how you reset a clock. That's how you reset an entire organization, what the Cardinals have done over the last 18 months or 20 months. And that's why the Cardinals have the best trajectory out of any team in the NFC West for perpetual relevance after this season, pretty much. What needs to happen for this to come to fruition? What balls need to bounce the Cardinals' way? What play needs to happen on the field for both the Cardinals and the rest of the NFC running mates? One thing's for certain. Kyler Murray needs to solidify himself as the best quarterback in the NFC West. I'll discuss more. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. And again, view from your seat. I talk about it every time I do this live because it's important. You go to the Game Time app, you click on a row in a section, you can see what your vantage point will be before you buy the tickets. It takes the absolute guesswork out of buying tickets. So do it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Kyler Murray needs to solidify himself as the best quarterback in the NFC West if the Cardinals want to have the best trajectory of any team in the NFC West for the next handful of seasons. And I don't think that that's something that's going to be that difficult. Sure, maybe not in 2024. 2025, we're going to have a conversation. Is Kyler Murray the best quarterback in the NFC West? And it's going to look different for every organization. What Brock Purdy does for the San Francisco 49ers is exactly what he's supposed to be doing, and he does it at an elite level. Matthew Stafford keeps his team in games when the defense isn't showing up or when he just Houdinis it and makes something out of nothing. Okay? But Matthew Stafford's not getting any younger. Brock Purdy's going to start to have pressure on him. And whether it be with the 49ers or another team, I couldn't see a world where they wouldn't bring him back. But crazier things have happened. And Geno Smith isn't the guy, otherwise they wouldn't have traded for Sam Howell. Come on. Let's be honest here. They would have kept Drew Lock. It's like, what does it matter? He's going to start anyways unless he gets hurt. So let's be real. He's not the guy. One of the best stories in the history of football. Truly. That's not, I'm not saying that, as a platitude. One of the best stories in the history of football. Nobody saw that coming. Career backup who takes over a role in his 11th year and plays well, does it well. Come on. Insane. And he did it, and it's fantastic. But there's a timer that's going to go off for Stafford and Geno Smith for very different reasons, but it's going to happen in the next year or two. Kyler Murray needs to solidify himself as the best quarterback in the NFC West. Without a doubt. That's the first thing, above all else, that needs to happen for the Cardinals' trajectory to be as potent as it's set up to be us looking down the runway for the next 5 seasons. That's one. Number 2, San Francisco needs to implode. And this isn't something that you're rooting for something bad to happen. The Cardinals can still have the best trajectory of any team in the NFC West if San Francisco doesn't implode. But in an absolute perfect scenario, after this season, say, listen, I hate to say it. I said this a couple of years ago when the Rams were really good. The best thing that happened to the Rams is they win the Super Bowl. When they traded for Von Miller, they signed Odell Beckham Jr. It's like, win the Super Bowl. Just do it 1 year. Everybody's going to be gone after that. And it's going to be downhill after that. And they did, even though, Tom Brady, they were part of one of the worst second halves of football. And they got absolutely bailed out by a cover 0 call by Todd Bowles. And they ended up winning that game in Tampa Bay when they had no business winning after they went up, I think, 24 points or something like that. But 49ers, the best case, even though you never want to see a division rival win, that may be the best case. But regardless, we can talk more in depth about that, how backwards that is, even though it could be positive for the Cardinals. The 49ers ecosystem can't continue the way it has. Financially, it can't. After this season, you hope that they, obviously barring any, you don't want any sort of injuries to happen to anybody. So say they get there, they're going to make a deep run in the playoffs. They make NFC Championship game, maybe make the Super Bowl. If they don't win, it's going to be every year they make a deep run and they don't win. That's a win, obviously, because you want them to get as close as possible and not to win, because then you really got to look yourself in the mirror. Is this working? Why isn't this working? If the 49ers implode, that could be maybe Brock Purdy takes a step back, or maybe they're forced to pay him, which they should. Then it's you can't pay Debo. George Kittle's probably got to go. They've got a couple defensive players they're going to have to go. The ability that they've had, remember when Russell Wilson was a rookie and Ben Roethlisberger was a rookie and they were able to pay all those other players? This is like that on steroids. So the implosion of the 49ers starts if they don't win this year. So that needs to happen. They just need to not win the Super Bowl this year. What else needs to happen? Matthew Stafford needs to not be able to carry the Rams anymore. And I think this is the best chance of happening. He's had an incredible career. Consummate pro. Hall of Famer. Did things in Detroit that, kept people Detroit Lions fans. But I think that this is the beginning of the end. And that's a fantastic timing for the Cardinals. Obviously, you never want anybody's career to end. Like, I'm not talking about injury, anything like that. It's on the downturn, which is perfect timing for the Cardinals and their ascension. And Seattle still needs to not be able to figure it out, which is kind of what they do. They can't figure it out. DK Metcalf is not going to be happy after. DK is not going to be on Seattle after this season. Come on, man. When they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, that was a decision. It's going to be a very different roster after this year, you would think, especially if they don't win. So those things need to happen. And then, Cardinals-centric wise, Marvin Harrison Jr. needs to work out. Trey McBride needs to continue to be a tight end one. And the defense needs to absolutely explode in the future. Like, it doesn't have – I'm not talking about in 2024. I'm just saying the rookies and the second-year players this year, rookies this year, they need to show that star power in them and become stars. And the defense needs to become a calling card. That is obviously a thing. So those things like Kyler Murray needs to, the most important position in football is quarterback. He needs to solidify himself as QB1 in the NFC West. San Francisco needs to not win this year and then implode after. It's going to be an implosion next year. We just don't know what it's going to look like yet. Then Matthew Stafford needs to continue to he needs to not be a quarterback who can keep the Rams and their inferior roster compared to what they've been in games. Cooper Kupp's not getting any younger. Aaron Donald's not there anymore. It's going to be more and more difficult for Matthew Stafford to do that. And then Seattle needs to just continue to Seattle. They just need to continue to do that. What cannot happen if the Cardinals want this incredible trajectory to play out in real time? What cannot happen? One, Monti Ossenfort cannot be a 2-and-done. That's next. Locked On Cardinals, your team, every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball. And a lot of baseball. And you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use for anything. You can bet on anything. Like Major League Baseball MVP, who's going to win Coach of the Year, who's going to make the World Series. They've got you covered for all of it, man. Like, I tell people, I wish baseball was my favorite sport because it's like 6 months of March Madness. And with that comes all the odds and all the lines and all the things you can bet on. Single game parlays. You bet on who's going to hit a home run. Like, FanDuel's got you covered for every single morsel of your wagering pleasure when it comes to baseball. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by my friends at Bird Gang Travel Club. So it's summer, maybe kids are at home, maybe they're at camp. Parents are looking like, well, listen, when summer's over, when are we going to have our next vacation? We're going to have to wait until next summer? That doesn't seem right. Luckily for you, Bird Gang Travel Clubs exists. It exists, if I can speak properly. They provide the best and only fan travel experience for Cardinals road games. We're talking 50 to 500 fans, man, on a given trip. Imagine a couple hundred of you maniacs all traveling to one game and having everything planned out for you. Like, put it this way. Week 1, Buffalo, Bird Gang Travel Club. Week 6, Green Bay, Bird Gang Travel Club. Miami, South Beach, Week 8, Bird Gang Travel Club. What do the packages include? Top-notch hotel stays for 3 or 4 nights, lower-level game tickets. They've still got row 5 or closer for both Buffalo and Green Bay. You want to see a Lambeau Leap in real time? Boom, Green Bay. You want to go to Orchard Park and be closer to the field than you ever thought? Boom, Buffalo, Week 1. Now, on top of that, they got parties every night with open bar and apps, unique fan tours of Lambeau Field and Niagara Falls, souvenir trip patches, State 48 trip shirts, and more. Visit birdgang.com to see all the packages today. They've got payment plans. If you don't want to put all the cheese up front, They've got payment plans where you can spread it out. Sign up by June 23rd and receive a signed Paris Johnson Jr. mini helmet for anyone in your package. Use the code LOCKEDON to receive a bonus signed mystery mini helmet or football from a current Cardinals player or alumni while supplies last. Bird Gang Travel Club. The Cardinals have the best trajectory out of any team in the NFC West as pertaining to perpetual relevancy after 2024. What cannot happen to thwart that? One, Monti Ossenfort cannot lose course. And this isn't saying or inferring that he will. This isn't inferring that this is like a Slumdog Millionaire run that's going to end. For those that haven't seen Slumdog Millionaire, Dev Patel, one of my favorite actors of all time. Newsroom? You kidding me? If you haven't watched Newsroom, go watch Newsroom. It's one of the best shows ever. The Lion, he's incredible. Anyways, he's on the version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and for some reason, through life experiences, he knows every single question. He knows the answer to every single question. And it's like this, divine intervention, like perfect storm in a positive way. Monti Ossenfort cannot be the Slumdog Millionaire for 2 years. Like, this needs to continue. And it's it becomes more difficult when you're not picking in the top 5, which you'd assume the Cardinals after the season won't be. Monti Ossenfort cannot regress as a talent evaluator, as a drafter, as a leverager for the Cardinals pertaining to draft capital, cap space, players, whatever it is. He needs to get better every year, or, status quo, which has been pretty damn good so far. That's one thing that cannot happen. Number 2, Kyler Murray cannot regress. We're going to find this out in 2024. We're going to find it out in 2024. And the expectations are going to be different, okay? This is still a 2-year plan. The Cardinals could surprise people. They could be a wild card team. We've seen crazier things happen, and this offense is going to be special. But he cannot regress. He must be the guy. Because if he's not, you may as well take this entire podcast that I spent so much time, prepping for and recording, just rip it in half. Kyler Murray cannot regress. And he's never been in this great of a position, high school, college, pros, because he's not going to be asked to do everything. And going back to the last segment, Kyler Murray needs to be the best quarterback in the NFC West. That doesn't mean he has to have 400 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns a game. He could throw for 240 and a touchdown and be the best quarterback in the NFC West. Okay? This isn't directly correlated to stats. I think that's a farce. It's a fallacy. But he cannot regress. He cannot continue to make the same mistakes he's made, throwing bad interceptions over the middle, sailing, not being on the same page as his wide receivers and tight ends. I think we saw that last year, obviously, because he didn't play for the first large chunk of the season, and he was just coming off an ACL tear where he missed, weeks the year before. Like, I think that this is going to be a non-issue moving forward, especially with a full camp, full offseason, full quote-unquote non-voluntary, voluntary OTAs. Like, it's different. This is one that I was questioning not putting in here, but I think that this is so important. James Conner can't leave. And while it's going to be in a different role after this year, especially if Trey Benson pops off, I've been yearning the day that the Cardinals bring in a running back who can take over that RB1 role and move James Conner to the, everydayers will know, LeGarrette Blount role. Touching the ball 40% of the time, most of the carries inside the 5 when you need a third down. And that's not to say Trey Benson couldn't do it. James Conner is so incredibly important to this organization. And I don't understand why people will just take that old adage, oh, he's old, let him go. No, that's too much money to pay a 30-year-old running back. Look at the body of work. Look at what he's done. This isn't something that he's gonna garner $10 million a year on the open market. Look at what he's done during the bad times. Look at what he's done dominantly a lot of the time when the Cardinals have been bad. He's done it with a smile. He's been the leader on offense when Kyler Murray was out, and he loves being an Arizona Cardinal. James Conner needs to be here. Now, if he's not, that doesn't mean that it completely derails this. Like, I'm not delusional in this respect. I mean, I might be in others. James Conner being an Arizona Cardinal, retiring an Arizona Cardinal 3 or 4 years from now, I think is an incredibly important catalyst for this team. Even if he's RB2 and RB1 is an absolute powerhouse, touching the ball 30 times a game, James Conner makes this team better every time he's on the field. And you do not let people like that walk, regardless of what history says when it comes to running backs. You know how many 24-year-old running backs flame out? Come on. He's been as good every year since he's come here, regardless of age. What else cannot happen? This is the only one I'll say, because I don't think the Rams and Seahawks are going to be a real threat if these things really come into fruition. San Francisco, they can't just figure it out. The Ricky Pearsall draft out of Florida, he's the next one once they let Debo go. Like, they just can't nail on drafts. Because San Francisco obviously is a better organization than the Cardinals. They've got a better history. They've got a better roster now. They've got a better, they've, by pretty much every metric, they've been the best. They had a bad year. When the Cardinals had a bad year in 2018, somehow the Cardinals got the number 1 overall pick. I think the Raiders won 2 out of their 3 last games or something like that, or the 49ers, and I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But the 49ers were bad when the Cardinals were bad. The Cardinals got the 1 pick. 49ers got the 2 pick, and look at the trajectory. I think they went from worst to first that year. That was Jimmy Garoppolo year against Patrick Mahomes, I believe. But again, this isn't a 49ers podcast, so it doesn't matter. The point is, the 49ers can't get better after this season. That is going to derail things, from the opening gate. That's not to say that it's not a circumventable hurdle for the Cardinals by any stretch. They've still got so much money tied up to so many players who are still young enough to where they can play for the next 3 or 4 years. But they can't just figure it out after this year without losing anybody. If they pay Brock Purdy and they were able to pay Brandon Ayuk and keep Nick Bosa and keep Javon Hargrave, who they signed this offseason, and keep Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and everybody, and just continue to move forward, that's a nail into this story for the Cardinals. There's a salary cap. There's no way it could happen. And I'll tell you what, changes will be made if they win a bunch of games in the regular season and don't win a Super Bowl this year. This is truly a Super Bowl or bust year for the 49ers regarding, is being really good enough, or do you need to figure it out and maybe start to trim some pieces? They cannot figure it out and still reign supreme after the 2025 season specifically, because that means that it's systemic and it's never going to change. And that's something that would be detrimental for the Cardinals having the best trajectory in the NFC West out of all the teams. I don't see it happen. So because of that, the Arizona Cardinals have the best trajectory of any team in the NFC West as pertaining to perpetual relevancy after the 2024 season. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.